Calvin's one of my best friends, but more important for y'all, Calvin has been in this game for a long time now. He is having such an impressive year while still supporting our Texoma division as we're having a nice, really bounce back summer for us. He still does consulting and helps out, but more important to that, he's just killing it in the field.
Has just become known for within our team is his ability to just stay in the game. Mental fortitude is an incredible thing, and it's not even a hard thing it's not even a hard decision what Calvin's superpower is. I think any of us that have worked with him in the booth know that Calvin is completely unfazed by what is happening around him. That whole time and CPO are not correlated. That was Calvin's life. That was his lived experience long before we figured out how to sort of explain that to each other. That was just Calvin. I've worked so many shows where he's just getting his teeth kicked in a little bit and it's slow. But then all of a sudden the reality is he's just unfazed. It doesn't matter. I'm a neurotic mess. I could already be at $3,000 in sales for the day. Calvin's at 300 and he's more confident in his next interaction than I am, even coming from that place. And the amount I have seen him pull out $3,000, $5,000, $8,000 in the back part of a day, it's just incredible. It's something that I envy. It's something I'm jealous of. But the good news is Calvin says it's something we can all learn, and to help us really work on our own level of mental fortitude, our ability to stay in the game, and give us some tips so we too can be like Calvin. I'm going to turn over to the greatness of Mr. Calvin Lopez.
I know whenever they asked me to talk about this, my first question was how long do I have to talk? And again, it's not that I don't like the message or I don't like the idea of it, but it's more of, to me, I break things down so simply. So I really did try to put some thought into effort to not just think how I would feel about something, but how other people might feel as well. So when I think about what we go into with the State Fair project, this is an animal that a lot of people don't really understand. I hear other people all across the nation, they talk about their state fairs and how they suck, or they're just different, or ours is just better because it's Texas. They give us all these different excuses, but the reality is our team takes pride in what we do. We work hard, we challenge ourselves, and we do everything we can to kind of always be the best of the best of the best. And a lot of times that puts unnecessary pressure on us, and that makes us start to kind of second guess literally everything we're doing. But when we break it down and we think about it, we're working anywhere from 10 hours to 13-hour days every single day for weeks or even months at a time consistently. We go in and it's a nonstop grind. And Kelly kind of said it earlier, how for us, it's oh, this is super fun and exciting, but maybe that's how some of us feel. Maybe some people don't feel that way. Maybe some people dread it. They're just oh, I hate how much time I'm going to spend away from my family, or I hate the fact that I'm so tied up and committed to doing this for so long. I could be doing other things. For me, I love the State Fair. I think it's amazing. I would much rather be at the fair all year than anywhere else. But I understand that sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. And it starts to kind of mess with our head. It starts to kind of mess with the way we think about things. We show up day in and day out, and we have to be at our best of our best at all times. We have all these interactions with these customers, and we have to deal with all these unknowns, and we have to be ready to answer all their questions perfectly. And we have to be ready to deal with the unhappy person who's going to walk up for no reason and say something stupid. And we have to learn how to talk them off the ledge and fix their issue, even though it's not really an issue. It's just them being an idiot. Or we have to kind of basically really kind of be mentally prepared. And then just the reality is our brains are going to mess with us whenever we start going through all this. We start to overthink every interaction we have. We start second guessing what we should be pitching because we're supposed to pivot, or we're supposed to show them cookware, we're supposed to show them knives. We start comparing ourselves to the other people we're working with. And we can all admit those moments have happened where we see somebody crushing it next to us. And then we're just man, I sold a 2-piece and that's just been my day. We start comparing ourselves to everyone we're working with. It's oh man, I look at the schedule and I have to work with Curtis today, or I have to work with Chelsea, or I have to work with Josh and Brian. I don't want to be late. Brian's going to yell at me. There's just so many different things running through our mind. We start giving ourselves excuses on why we're not doing as well as we should be doing. We start to struggle with the things that are kind of outside of our control. We can't really control how many people are going to talk to us every day. We can try, and we can be outgoing, and we can be active. But the reality is we can only do so much to make it work out for us. Turn roulette. That's my favorite thing. Turn roulette. People are man, Calvin's just talking to all the good people today. And that's really what's happening. That's why I'm not doing as well as I should be today. Or you feel like you really did crush that demo and you did everything perfectly, and the customer was just so money, and they're wearing the Rolex and they have their Louis bag, and they're cool, we'll think about it. and they just walk away. Those are my favorite. We start to give ourselves permission to just be like, you know what, it's fine, today sucks, I'll just do better tomorrow. Like, that's one of my least favorite things to do, is to give myself permission to say, I'll just do better later. We start pushing too hard with the wrong people, like, and we start being those aggressive salespeople that we don't want to be, or we start being the negative person in the booth. And like we brought it up, like we all know when that person's being negative and you kind of just don't want to talk to them, and you start to give them space. You never want to be that person. We stop celebrating the wins that everybody else is having. Like, I love it seeing everybody else crush it. I love kind of being able to high five them, and I want to be excited for them. There's so many different things that can happen on a day-to-day basis that can affect our state of mind, and we can choose to let it affect us negatively, or we can choose to take it differently and do something better and do something more positive. Like, even one of the worst things we can do is have a really great start of the day and then just give up on the rest of the day because we already had that really big order in the very beginning. Like, I've seen it happen so many times. I was working the fair with Trevor Sawyer. This was way back when, and he had a 10K order literally at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And then he just sat on his computer for the rest of the day and didn't do anything else. Like, he could have crushed it, but he didn't. Like, whenever all these things start to happen, like, we get caught in that mental loop, and it's easy to just say screw it, and it's easy to just give up. But the amazing thing that we try not to do is we try to challenge ourselves, we try to hold ourselves accountable, and we try to reset the way we're thinking to choose to do something different. Now, like, it's easy to get stuck in that mental loop, and that's one thing that, like, a lot of people, like, it's basically like a tape's playing in our head over and over and over again, like, oh, we suck, or oh, this just isn't my day, or oh, I'll do better tomorrow, or whatever it may be. But it's always an opportunity to overcome it, and it's an opportunity to challenge yourself to kind of reset that thinking and to do something different, and to really break into a different, and to have that bigger and better day, and to be ready for that next customer who will walk up that could change literally everything. And when I think about this, like, there's a few specific examples that come into mind about like how I've had good days, bad days, or other days, or whatever it may be. But like, the first one that comes to mind, I brought this up at a different retreat, but basically me and Josh were working last year at the New York State Fair, and we were working literally like 13-hour days every single day for 13 days straight. We didn't get a break. And that alone is just a lot. Like, after about day 7 or 8, it's just like, man, I need a day off too. Like, it starts to kind of overwhelm you, and everything can start to kind of nitpick at you. And it was funny because I remember, like, Josh was, we had that customer who was just ignorant. And they came up to the booth and they started kind of just saying some wild stuff to Josh. Josh was just like, whatever, like, you can go. And basically they kind of had a few words back and forth, and we don't have to get into too many details about exactly what was said. But I remember just looking at Josh, and I was like, Josh, you should leave. And he was like, what? I was like, you should just leave. And he was like, should I leave? I was like, absolutely. He was like, okay. And he just walked out of the booth, and he took some time, and he called his wife, and he talked to Amy because she's amazing. And he was gone for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and he came back, and he was just like, all right, I'm good. And like, I bring that up because, like, I love the fact that, like, Josh and I we've worked enough together, and we trust each other enough to be able to have those moments where he didn't say anything bad. No, he didn't. But we had that moment where he trusted me enough to where he was like, oh, I need to take a walk. I was like, absolutely. And he was like, okay, cool. And he just stepped away, and he did what he needed to do for himself to reset. And he came back, and literally it was like he was a different person. It was like day 1 of the fair Josh. Like, he just needed that moment to kind of have that little breath of fresh air and that little bit of relief. But he took that time to do it, and he trusted his coworker enough to know, like, okay, maybe I do need to take that 5. Another instance that comes to mind for me, like especially at the fairs, like, and this one was again years ago, I was working with Rob. We were working at the Oklahoma State Fair. We were in this, I think it was the Cox building. If anybody ever worked in the Cox building, you know, sometimes some days are slow over there. And it was just a rough day. And literally I had sold one order for like $280. And it was literally 7 o'clock at night. And Rob was just like, man, today has been rough. And I was like, no, Rob, we don't think like that. Like, you never know when your big one is coming. Like, anything could happen. We just have to stay ready. And like, no sooner than I said that, then the next person that I talked to walks up, and they were so money. And I just knew they were money. But again, I was just staying positive, and I was excited to talk to somebody, and I do my pitch, we go through everything, and then boom, they get the ulti with steaks. But I stayed in the moment. We kept talking. And then next thing you know, boom, we up them 50 Santoku trimmers as business gifts. And this was years ago before we did business gifts. And I was like, holy crap. Literally, this is the biggest order I've ever had at the booth at the time. And I look at Rob and I was like, see, you never know. I was so excited. Like, it was just so ridiculous. Like how literally after just having that conversation, literally that moment happens literally in that exact same time. But talking about the other end of this at the same time is, again, when we're having that good day, just the same. So there was a time earlier this year, I was working the booth. It was Brian and we were working at the Dallas Safari Club. It was Saturday and it was cranking. We were crushing it. It was literally like first order of the day is like, you know, a 5-piece. Second order is like a Siggy with steaks. Next order is a ultimate set up into a full Cutco kitchen. Order after that is literally ultimate with a legacy cookware. And we're just banging out everything. And I'm having literally the best day at the booth I've ever had. And I'm feeling so good. And I remember like Brian and I were, it was probably 5 o'clock. We had like another hour or so before it closed. And Brian was like, what do you think you're at? What's like your rough estimate? Because he knows generally for me, I don't really worry about totals until it's over. So I kind of just ran through the numbers, had a rough estimate. I was like, I think I'm over 18K so far on the day. And he was like, that's incredible. And I was like, yeah, but if I can get one or two more good orders, like I could literally have my first 20K day at the booth. Like, so instead of just being like, man, I've been crushing it and there's an hour left, like I'm good. My whole idea and my whole thought process was, how can I get that next one to get that next big milestone? Like, I want to stay hungry. And I remember literally the next person I talked to, I was so hyped. I was like, man, if you buy this set, I'll be doing something special. It's going to be huge. And he bought like $500. I was still grateful, but I still got the extra order. Like, I didn't hit the 20K, but I ended up finishing it like that 18.9. But I was just like, I was still staying in the moment and I was staying hungry and I was choosing to try to continue to challenge myself to kind of want to have that next big moment. So when I break it down like this, the reality is like, it's a choice we make in the booth on how we choose to feel with every turn we take. It's a choice we make if we want to be upset about the person, and we get that moment. If somebody's really shitty to us and we have a bad interaction, okay, you can be upset, but you can't stay upset. Like, I can choose to let that, okay, I'm going to let that interaction go with the person. All right, they sucked. I'm not going to use the words I would use at the booth, but they were whatever they were. And I'll even say it to whoever I'm working with. I'm like, all right, but who cares? The next person I talk to, they're probably going to buy a lot. So that's who I need to be ready for. I'm going to choose to be more excited about that next interaction. Like, to me, it doesn't matter what's happened all day. Like, everything that's happened prior to the exact moment I'm in at that moment is irrelevant. The reality is, for me, whoever I talk to next could be that next big person. And that's the mindset I choose to have when I'm working. Like, I want to continue to be ready to crush the next demo I do, because I don't know what they're going to buy. And I believe it's going to be something great. And this is the only place we've ever worked, and we can be honest, where we can have the worst day of the worst days. And that other person walks in 30 minutes before close and we do that crazy good demo and they buy that $10,000 order. And then all of a sudden we're super hyped because we had that great day. Or we could have that negative moment where it's like, today's over. I'm going to go get a corn dog and I'm going to go get a drink and I'm going to walk around and I'm just going to kind of waste the rest of it. And I'm just going to let it be what it's going to be. Like, I would much rather hold myself accountable, and I would rather do things that I know are going to help me be positive and be excited about what I'm doing than just let it be. And for everyone has different ways of making that work for them. Kelly mentioned a few of them. Like, if you have that gratitude list, like, how do you choose to start your day every day? I love it when Seth is in town, because every time, and I know him and Bert do the same thing, but Seth is always, the first thing he says when we get in the car, hey guys, what are 3 things you're grateful for? Like, if he chooses to start every single day with gratitude. I know for me, like, I'll write things down that I know, like, if I do get upset in the booth or I do have that moment, I want to have something I can reference that reminds me why it's really not that serious to have a bad moment in the booth. Because in the grand scheme of things, compared to my life, having a bad customer interaction isn't that big of a deal. I've been through the worst of the worst, and I've done some of the craziest of the crazy things people could ever imagine. And those experiences are drastically different. Those, to me, are bad. A customer coming up to me at the booth and being upset because, I didn't text him about a service event, even though I did. Like, okay, whatever, fuck. Like, that's fine. That's really not that big of a deal. Or like, that person didn't buy that ultimate set from me. I really wanted them to. Oh, well, the 2 other people I talked to before did, though. So why do I really care about this one person who didn't? I'm going to focus on the positives over the negatives every time. Now, because of that, I can just be excited. I can be that guy who just kind of goes through the moments. And that's why it doesn't faze me at all, because I have that expectation of every single customer interaction. I think it's going to be that 5K or that 10K or that 20K or that 30K moment. And if I choose not to be the best version of myself in that moment, I'm not going to be able to close them the way I should. So I would much rather just be excited about the next person walking up than worry about the person who just walked away. And again, that's for the good or the bad, because everyone deserves us at our best. And if we can kind of stop worrying about the things that don't really matter and just focus on the things that do, we can really do amazing things, and we can have the fair season we really want to have, and we can be excited and we can celebrate and we can all win together. So I know I probably have a few more minutes, but that's the reality for me. That's me and my focus.
All right, Calvin, thank you so much. I really love just the thing I really love about this one is just the importance that, you know, Calvin brings to the table of understanding like how to really hold yourself accountable to the highest standards, but more importantly, how to like hold each other to the highest standards. I think one of the biggest things that I've had to learn how to become okay with over the years has been just being open to receiving feedback from people. And because, you know, all of us, even the best of us, aren't always at our best. And when we're spending 2/3 of the hours of our day in the booth with each other, we're going to see both the best of each other and also the worst of each other. And that's okay. It's a normal thing. And I think one of the most powerful things we've done as a team is really come together and held each other to a higher standard of that mental fortitude that we know leads to the best results. So let's give Calvin a little bit of love here in the chat box. Let him know what you loved about.
Yeah, and we have time. Go ahead and ask your question for Calvin. We've got time.
Calvin, so at State Fair specifically, obviously there's, you know, your whole talk was about not, you know, giving a, you know, in the booth. At other shows, we have time to like walk around. We have time to like sit there. But sometimes in State Fairs, like on that busy Saturday, the next customer comes up like that. What are some super quick things that you do to change your mindset after a bad interaction?
Like me personally, I go to gratitude kind of instantly. It's like what I start my day with every day. And I love it when other people do it as well. So like I will just list off 3 to 5 things that remind me of why I should be excited to continue to be here. Or I'll still take that 5 minutes at the fair, regardless of the traffic, because if that's what's best for me that day, if I need to walk out, it's gonna be so much better for the rest of the day rather than that one moment where it's busy. Cause like it's still gonna be busy when I get back. So like regardless of the situation, if that's what I need, I'm still gonna do it.
Call. But one other quick question, Calvin. You know, one of the things I love working in the booth a lot with Calvin, and I always used to love working in the booth a lot with Kelly, because like, you know, when you work enough, we all get that shorthand. Like I guarantee you Chelsea has that with Sean. And I guarantee you like Marissa has that with Rob. And, you know, we all get that on different levels, but I work so much with Calvin that we know how each other operates in a lot of ways. I'm not going to pester Calvin for like, what have you sold for today? I'm not going to bug Curtis with that because I know that for him, he's better in a flow state where he can just focus on the interaction. For me, I like knowing my numbers. It's motivating for me. It challenges me to continue being better. And neither approach is better or worse. They're both valid. But something that I think is hard sometimes is when we step into the booth with 4 people and 3 of them we have maybe never worked with, you know, how can we support and hold each other accountable and build each other up? Calvin, you know, do you have any conversations with people early in the day, or how do you feel people out to know, is this, you know, if I see something, do you want me to support you or help you? Can I offer something up in a quiet moment? Or would you rather I not, you know, and then you can ask me if you're curious. Like, do you have any thoughts on how we can build each other up in a way that doesn't, no one feels targeted, people don't feel defensive? I mean, don't get me wrong, if Calvin's like, dude, you botched that approach, my wall might be there a little, but it comes down pretty quickly because I know what Calvin's intentions are. So just as a closing thought, Calvin, do you have any thoughts on how we can, you know, approach a day and interact? You know, maybe it's Anthony, Joseph, and Jess, and the 3 of them never worked before. How are they going to approach the day where they know how they can work best with each other?
Absolutely. Like for me, I'm just very upfront and I'm very open about how I feel or if I'm unsure. So I will just straight up ask people like, hey, do you want feedback or not today? And like, they'll tell me honestly, yes or no. And it's just more so I want to get out of the way early because I don't want to have the awkward moment and not know what to do. I would rather just feel them out right there in the beginning, especially if we've never had a shift together. I'm just like, hey, just so you know, like this is how we do turns. This is kind of how I am at the booth. I'm very excited. Is there anything that would like annoy you? Because I can be that guy sometimes. And I'll just be upfront about it. Like, and like, hey, if you're having a moment, can I tell you, or would you rather me just keep away? And if we can actually be honest with ourselves and tell the person we're working with the actual truth rather than, oh yeah, I'm good, you can tell me, even though that's not really how you feel. Like, don't lie just because that's what you think we want to hear. I would much rather be upfront and honest and say, hey, this is the reality. Yeah, like if I'm having a moment, it's best just to give me space. Like, okay, cool. If you're having that moment, I know I'll let you have your moment. Like if that's what you need to do to go through to make your day better, all right, let's do it. Like, or if you're like, no, call me out. Like, okay, cool. I'll call you out, but don't get mad at me when I do it.